Life is a fight, from the minute you take your first breath to the moment you exhale your last. Unknown. Good morning. My name is Ndisunge Lucy Ngwera Brooks. I was born in Malawi, Africa. I have been thriving with HIV for 26 years. I was born to HIV-positive parents and have been battling this illness ever since my first breath. Life in Malawi was arduous. My first steps taken on this earth were taken running away from my father in one of his many alcoholic rages. The solaceness was endured until our family moved into the United Kingdom. The frequent bouts of intoxicated rage led to my valiant mother collecting my 2 siblings and I to flee the country in the midst of the night. We were now headed to a new life, pursuing the American dream. Life was much more peaceful living away from my father. There was no daily threat of violence, no instances of seeing my mother hospitalized or my father jailed, and there were no foster homes to be sent off to, ripped away from my loved ones. There was peace, unity, and calm. The 4 of us lived in harmony for 5 years. When the winter of 2007 made its arrival, my father had fallen ill with alcohol poisoning. This was very strenuous on my mother's heart, as she loved him tremendously, and kept in contact with him over the phone throughout the years. And that was his presence throughout my childhood, a voice over the phone. On December 7, 2007, my father passed away. I never saw a tear, but I could tell how sharply lacerated my mother was and how greatly it affected her health. Just 3 short months later, on March 28, 2008, my mother developed a cold that quickly progressed into pneumonia, an opportunistic infection. She fought dauntlessly for a few weeks until she passed on as well. I started the 5th grade with 2 parents, and I ended it with none. I had always thought, I never thought in a million years that would happen. My siblings and I were left as orphans, with the oldest of us aging at age 19, 15, and I, the last born, age 10. We were left to fend for ourselves, alone, in a foreign country, clear on the opposite side of the planet from anyone that cared. The oldest of us was left an obligation by the last words of our dying mother. Our only chance to stay together in this country and keep pursuing the American dream was for the oldest of us to adopt the rest of us. Life at home between the 3 of us was exigent. We were all coping in vastly different ways. Stability, food insecurity, and abuse was common in our household of children raising children, exasperated and defeated by the world, wondering why it was so barbaric. 3 years had come and gone with the 3 of us surviving in this country alone. Throughout my childhood, I was as healthy and as able as my peers. Although I dealt with several colds throughout the year, I always recuperated, so no one ever saw a need for concern. Until one day, I didn't recover. April 28, 2011, I developed a flu that wouldn't go away. I was suddenly submerged in a whirl of symptoms. I did not know what was ailing me and why it would not cease. Weeks had gone by, and I was still in a flu-like state. The oldest of us decided that we should all get tested. They and I came out positive, and our middle-born sibling was miraculously negative. I still remember that day. I was in the last month of 8th grade. I walked into the clinic with a very indifferent demeanor because it couldn't be me, right? When I entered the room and the clinicians began explaining my test results, banshee-like screams filled my head, and they became so intense and deafening that I was numbed by the terror that filled my heart. It was almost as if I couldn't hear what the clinicians were saying, almost as if the world had slowed in motion. I was only 13 years old and I was unknowingly living with AIDS. I had already watched this vicious illness take my father, then mother, away from me, and it threatened to take me too. I was just about to start high school with the fresh information that was decaying before my life had even taken course. The condition had already done so much damage to my juvenile immune system that I had become permanently disabled. I found myself in a deep depression accompanied by reoccurring nightmares of the apocalypse. I felt shame, I felt dirty, and I felt low. My life was changed forever once again. This pill I was prescribed was going to be the only thing keeping me alive, and that thought was harrowing. Every day was, and still is, a struggle with this disability. The treatment was incredibly strong on my juvenile body as well, and often made me ill after consumption. Out of the 3 of us, the sibling who was negative enrolled us into AFAN, Ryan White, and the like, and I began receiving counseling at Community Counseling Center when I was 15. And this has helped me cope throughout the years with people such as Christopher Mendoza always encouraging me to be me. By the time I was 20, being immersed in an atmosphere where abuse was the standard had taken its toll on my immune system and I had become bedridden. Life had come to a startling halt. I was so ill that I was manacled to that bed, laying there in excruciating pain, throwing up 5 days out of the week. But still, I kept fighting. I laid in that bed, wishing for nothing but for some vestige of respite. The stress of living in a household divided had made me come to feel that I had not only lost my parents once, but that I had lost them twice. The emotional pain was and still is indescribable. People would ask me silly questions like, "How did you deal with that?" I didn't. I developed a severe episode of psychosis and was hospitalized for almost 2 months. Desperation at this point was at its climax. If I was to survive, something had to change. No one was going to save me. Like my mother, I developed my own plan to flee and worked with services within the community such as NARES to execute my vision of freedom. Together, we devised a plan for a safe place to lay my head in. Even though I was too sickly to take care of myself, I took a leap of faith to escape. And after many months of vigorous preparation, luck striked. Finally, respire. Somewhere to lay my head in without the fear of maltreatment. At this point in time, our family had broken apart and I was the last of my siblings residing in Nevada. Being cognizant that it was just me and my sick body that I had to rely on was, and still is, an agonizing reality. But this is where an entirely new era was birthed and came into fruition. The era of me. Every day in this new life, I fought ferociously to attain what I had always deserved, what I was always deprived of: normalcy. I took every opportunity that came my way and devoured it whole, with a voracious appetite to live my life for the very first time. From starting my own ventures in business that I named 22 Clothing, the Us Two brand, to being discovered by an organization to become a public speaker and activist with absolutely no experience in the field, let alone a high school diploma. In my first speech, a woman came to me immediately after I concluded and was on the verge of tears, telling me how much I had moved her. In my second speech, I received 2 rounds of applause. Could you believe it? The abused, sick, orphan girl who was silenced and told that all she did was exist, was now existing loudly. My hunger did not stop there. I went on to enroll in college and graduated with 4 accolades in case management. I was the first and the youngest in the first generation of immigrants to graduate college. And today, I am a facilitator at Dignity Health. If you had told a 20-year-old me that she would finally get away from the abuse, achieve the normalcy she wanted, reopen her business, become a public speaker, graduate college, and achieve employment with a disability, she would say, "I never thought in a million years that would happen."